Hi, welcome to our channel, Programming of Mind, where we accelerate your knowledge with concise, from high-value book summaries. Let's begin. The Grace of the Divine, understanding the role of surrender and discipline. As Ravi continued his spiritual journey, it became clear to him that the path he was walking was not just about personal insight or realization. It was about understanding the workings of the divine and how the flow of life, when fully embraced, led him toward a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment. He realized that this path was not one of intellectualization, but a direct and intimate surrender to the divine, an act of love, trust, and unyielding devotion. However, as much as the divine flow was guiding him, Ravi also saw the importance of inner discipline. This balance between surrender and discipline was a recurring theme that began to surface in his life. Through his relationship with Guruji, Ravi came to understand that spirituality was not about passively waiting for divine grace to fall from the heavens, but about actively cultivating a mindset of readiness to receive it. The grace of the divine, a personal encounter. One of the most profound experiences Ravi had in his spiritual journey came one evening when Guruji took him on a walk to the temple located on a hill near the ashram. The temple was known for its serene surroundings and its ancient stone carvings of the divine. As they ascended the hill, Ravi's mind was filled with questions, doubts, and lingering attachments. He had struggled with these for years, even as his spiritual understanding deepened. Guruji walked ahead as if lost in his own thoughts, and Ravi followed silently. The evening air was cool, and the sky above was painted in hues of purple and orange as the sun dipped below the horizon. They reached the temple just as twilight began to settle in, casting long shadows over the stone structures. As they stood there before the altar, Guruji turned to Ravi and spoke softly. True grace comes when you surrender, but the surrender must come from the heart, not from the mind. The heart knows the truth, while the mind clings to illusions. Ravi nodded, unsure of what Guruji meant. He had heard these words many times before, but now they felt more significant than ever. Guruji continued, in the stillness of your heart, the divine is always present. It is your mind that veils this truth. You must look beyond your doubts, your attachments, your fears. Only then can you see clearly. At that moment, Ravi felt something shift within him. It was as if a veil had been lifted from his consciousness. He no longer felt like an individual who was struggling to find peace or enlightenment. He felt, for the first time, that he was an expression of the divine, just as much a part of this universe as the stars, the trees, and the river that flowed below the temple. Tears began to well in Ravi's eyes, not from sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He realized, in that brief moment, that his spiritual journey had never been about achieving something, but about recognizing what was already there. It was a surrender to the truth of who he was, pure, unchanging, and eternal. The role of surrender in spiritual growth. After that evening, Ravi's understanding of grace deepened. He began to see that the divine did not need to be searched for or attained. It was always present, always waiting for him to surrender to it fully. This surrender was not an act of resignation, but of acceptance, an acceptance of the divine order that governed not just his life, but the life of all beings. Ravi remembered a story Guruji had shared with him a few months ago, which illustrated the importance of surrender. Once a great sage was sitting in meditation by the side of a river. He had spent many years practicing, and his mind was still and serene. One day, a stranger came to him, asking for guidance on how to achieve peace. The sage told him to wait by the riverbank and meditate as he had done. The stranger sat down, closing his eyes and trying to concentrate. But no matter how hard he tried, he could not stop the thoughts that filled his mind. He became frustrated and went back to the sage, asking, "Why am I not able to meditate like you?" The sage smiled gently and said, "You are like a leaf in the river, struggling to stay still. But the river is always moving, and the leaf must go with the flow, not fight against it. When you surrender to the flow of life, you will find peace. This story resonated deeply with Ravi. He realized that, like the leaf in the river, he had been struggling against the flow of life for years. He had been trying to control his thoughts, his emotions, and even his spiritual progress. But the true way to inner peace was not in control, but in surrender. This surrender did not mean giving up on life or abandoning effort. Rather, it meant aligning himself with the natural rhythm of the universe, trusting that each step of his journey had a purpose, even if that purpose was not immediately clear. The balance of surrender and discipline. While surrender was an essential part of Ravi's spiritual journey, Guruji made sure to emphasize the importance of discipline. Without discipline, the spiritual path would become like a leaf in the wind, drifting aimlessly with no direction or purpose. It was through disciplined practice that Ravi would continue to cultivate the inner stillness that would allow him to experience divine grace. Guruji often said, "Grace comes when you are ready to receive it, but readiness is born from discipline. Disciplining your meditation, disciplining your actions, and disciplining your thoughts. Without discipline, the mind will be scattered, and you will not be able to experience the stillness necessary for grace to enter." At first, Ravi found the idea of discipline somewhat paradoxical. How could surrender, something that felt so effortless, be connected to something as structured as discipline? But as he continued his practice, he began to understand that true discipline was not about rigid control. It was about commitment to the path, dedication to personal growth, and an unwavering intention to remain connected to the divine. Ravi established a daily routine for himself. Early morning meditation, hours of study, and simple daily tasks done with full attention. This discipline helped him to stay grounded in his awareness, even as life around him moved rapidly. Through this practice, Ravi began to feel a new sense of clarity. His mind was no longer clouded by random thoughts or distractions. Instead, he felt like a vessel through which divine grace could flow freely. He saw that discipline and surrender were not opposites, but complementary forces. Discipline was the vehicle, and surrender was the destination. The realization of the eternal self. One evening, after a long day of work and spiritual practice, Ravi sat quietly in his meditation room, his mind calm and steady. He had been practicing meditation for years, and while his understanding of the divine had deepened significantly, there was still a sense of longing, an awareness that he had not yet fully realized the deepest truth about his own existence. As he closed his eyes and went deeper into his meditation, he felt a wave of stillness wash over him, a stillness that was unlike any he had experienced before. It was as if the entire universe had come to a stop, and in that moment, Ravi felt the presence of something vast and infinite. His thoughts faded, his sense of self dissolved, and what remained was pure consciousness, an awareness that was beyond time and space, beyond the body and the mind. He saw that his true nature was not the person who had been born or the individual who had walked through life's trials. His true nature was the awareness that underlay all of existence, the eternal witness to the changing play of life. Ravi realized, with deep clarity, that he was not just Ravi the man or Ravi the seeker. He was the eternal self, the unchanging consciousness that existed before time and would remain after time had passed. In that moment, all doubt vanished, and the truth was undeniable. Thank you for listening, and please like the video and subscribe for more great upcoming content that will put you in top 1% people in the world.